What is up? Welcome to a Thursday edition of Sports Watch. I'm Nick Donovan. The Egg Bowl's tomorrow night. No, not Ole Miss versus Mississippi State. I'm talking about the Oxford Chargers versus Starkville Yellow Jackets. Both teams coming this week after dominating performances last weekend. The Yellow Jackets have won the past 3 meetings between the two, but the Chargers are looking to bounce back with a huge win on the road. It will be a defensive showdown as both teams held their opponents to under 7 points last week. The game kicks off at 7 in Starkville. College football is around the corner. I can just smell it in the air. And I can also tell because the preseason All-SEC football teams were announced and 3 Rebels made the cut. Marquise Haynes is on the All-First-Team defense, while Gary Wunderlich made All-Second Team for special teams and Greg Little made All-Second Team offense. The Rebels are one of the least represented teams, but hey, this is preseason. Other Rebels have a chance to prove their worth during the season. Who knows? Maybe Shea Patterson will be listed as an All-SEC quarterback by the end of the season. And football isn't the only thing fastly approaching. The Ole Miss men's and women's basketball teams have released their schedule for the upcoming season. The women's team faces 2 top 25 teams on the road in DePaul and Oregon. The best home game for the women's team by far is when number 1 ranked South Carolina comes into town. For the men's, well, their non-conference schedule stinks. The only intriguing matchup is a showdown in Austin versus Texas during the Big 12 SEC Challenge. The best home game for the Rebs will be when the Florida Gators, a potential top 10 team, comes to town. All right, by now I'm sure you've all heard of this NBA blockbuster trade between the Celtics and the Cavaliers, where Kyrie Irving was traded for a package including Isaiah Thomas. Well, last night a Celtics fan published a video to YouTube where he is burning the jersey of Isaiah Thomas. Yeah, that makes sense since Isaiah left on his own accord. No! Isaiah Thomas was traded, for goodness sake. Most importantly, he poured his heart out for this team. He played in a playoff game and scored 33 points the day after his sister died. LeBron James, who, by the way, if anyone understands fans burning jerseys, he does, went to Twitter to rant about the disgraceful fan in a string of tweets where he defended Isaiah Thomas and told him to continue to strive for greatness. For the fan who burnt that jersey, shame. Shame on you. Shame. On a brighter note, fantasy football season is here, and I know you want the most creative names for your team. Well, your boy's here for you with the 5 fantasy team names that will for sure make other competitors jealous. First off, if you have Blake Bortles on your team, I'm sorry. But secondly, you have to name your team Teenage Mutant Ninja Bortles. Come on, it comes right off the tongue. Number 2, you have Des Bryant. Well, name your fantasy team after the number 1 song on the Billboard Top 100 Songs for 15 weeks running, Desposito. 3, your quarterback is Dak Prescott. How about Hit Me With the Prescott, or a bonus one, Dak to the Future. And finally, Ndamukong Suh's in your lineup. I guess that makes your team the Suicide Squad. All right, I'm sorry, enough of my awful puns. Let me give you some actual advice on the best tight ends to draft for your team. First and foremost, there's Rob Gronkowski. He's simply the best tight end in the game, and as long as he stays healthy, Gronk will provide you with all the fantasy points. Not to mention his quarterback is this guy, he's kind of the GOAT. His name's Tom Brady. Next, Travis Kelce. Kelce is the safest pick after Gronk for a tight end because he will be consistent. Tight ends don't score the most points by any means in fantasy, but a pick like Kelce, who was a top fantasy tight end last year, is a perfect pick option week to week. After Kelce comes Greg Olsen. Olsen was one of the 2 tight ends last year to reach over 1,000 yards receiving. One of the most targeted tight ends, Olsen is a solid pick. Next, Jordan Reed. Reed missed 4 games last year, but if he can stay healthy, Kirk Cousins loves throwing to him. You don't have to worry about Reed getting targets. He will get plenty of them. And finally, Jimmy Graham. He's a touchdown connoisseur in the red zone and will definitely give your team some points. That's all for sports. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at NewsWatch_UM. For all things Ole Miss, back to you guys at the